The snow fell silently over East Prussia. Each flake glowed under the faint moonlight dot, and among the ruins of what once was a proud German town stood a man staring into the distance. His name was Wilhelm Hosenfeld, a captain in the Wehrmacht, loyal soldier of Hitler's army at least. That's what his uniform said, but deep inside, Wilhelm was something else, a man torn between duty and conscience, between obedience and humanity. When the war began, he believed in Germany. He believed in rebuilding a nation humiliated after the Great War, not like millions of others. He had fallen for the promise, honor, order, greatness. But soon, he saw what that greatness really meant. Burned villages, crying children, columns of prisoners starving. Beaten, treated like animals. He began to question everything, and that question would soon turn him into an enemy of his own. It was the winter of pay. Wilhelm was stationed in occupied Poland. In the city of Warsaw, the air reeked of smoke and fear. German patrols moved through empty streets, rifles on their backs, eyes sharp. One evening, Wilhelm heard faint sounds coming from a warehouse behind the barracks. He walked closer, a low voice, movement. He pushed the door open and froze. A Jewish family mother, father, and two small children huddled inside. Terrified, the father dropped to his knees. Bit nicked. Please, don't. Wilhelm's hand went to his pistol, but he didn't pull it. He looked at them, then closed the door quietly behind him. That night, he wrote in his diary, "Something in me broke today. I saw human beings where others see vermin." From that day, Wilhelm changed. He started leaving extra rations behind warehouses. A loaf of bread here, a jar of jam there. Small acts. Tiny rebellions, but each one carried a death sentence if discovered. The Warsaw Ghetto was sealed off now. Hundreds of thousands trapped behind walls, starving, dying. Wilhelm would sometimes walk along the perimeter. He could hear the coughing, the crying, the whispers of people still clinging to life. And every time it gnawed at him. One evening, he slipped a small bag through a broken section of the wall. Bread, a few potatoes, a note, "Hold on. There are still good men among monsters." He never signed it. He never told anyone. But someone inside the ghetto found it and survived another day. By 1943, the situation grew worse. The Warsaw Ghetto uprising erupted. German soldiers stormed the ghetto, setting buildings on fire, executing anyone in sight. Wilhelm watched from the outskirts. Helpless. Smoke filled the sky, dark as ash. The sound of gunfire echoed like thunder. He wrote again, "We are not liberators. We are destroyers. If this is the glory of the Reich, then it is built on graves." A year later, the tide of war turned. The Soviets were advancing. The German army was retreating, broken and desperate. In the chaos, Wilhelm was reassigned deeper into Warsaw. He was now in charge of managing supplies for a half-ruined sector of the city. That's when fate crossed his path with a man who would change his life forever. WWII Szpilman, a pianist, a Jew, survivor of the ghetto. Wilhelm found him hiding in the corner of a bombed-out building. Thin, dirty, barely alive, his eyes hollow, hands trembling. Szpilman expected death. He had seen that look before. The uniform, the pistol, the cold authority. But Wilhelm just stood there, silent. Then he asked softly, "Are you still able to play the piano?" Szpilman nodded weakly. Wilhelm pointed to an old, dusty piano in the corner of the room. "Play something." The man hesitated, then sat down. His fingers shook as they touched the keys. The sound that came out was fragile, broken, yet beautiful. In that shattered room, in the middle of a dying city, music returned. Wilhelm felt his eyes sting. He took off his gloves. When Szpilman finished, Wilhelm whispered, "You must survive." For weeks, He brought him food, bread, canned meat, even a warm coat. Each visit was a risk, one report, one witness. And Wilhelm would hang, but he kept going. The German soldier and the Jewish pianist, two enemies by uniform, two human beings by heart, outside. The Reich was collapsing. Hitler demanded total war. Officers executed deserters in the streets. Fear ruled everyone, and yet, Wilhelm stayed true to one mission: no, save this man. He wrote in his journal again, "If I die, let it be known that I tried to be human." January 1945. The Red Army stormed Warsaw. German forces fled or surrendered. Wilhelm stayed behind. Too weak to run, too tired to fight. When Soviet soldiers entered the city, they arrested every German soldier they found, including Wilhelm. He didn't resist. Before being taken away, he left one note in the pianist's hiding place: "Do not forget me. Remember, there was a German who wanted to help." Szpilman survived. He searched for the man who had saved him. He found out later that Wilhelm was held in a Soviet prison camp. Accused of war crimes, he wasn't guilty of any, but he was still a German officer, and that was enough. He died in 1952, behind barbed wire, never knowing he'd become a hero in silence. Years later, Szpilman told the world about the German who saved him, the man who defied Hitler not with a gun, but with compassion. Wilhelm Hosenfeld, the forgotten savior of Warsaw. The prison gates slammed shut behind him. The sound echoed through Wilhelm's bones. Inside, the air smelled of rust and damp stone. He was no longer a captain, no longer a man with a name, just another number. The Soviets called it justice, but for Wilhelm, it was a slow death. In his cell, he met others, former Wehrmacht soldiers, teachers, farmers, anyone with a German accent. Some were cruel, some were broken, and some, like him, were simply caught in the storm. At night, he wrote on scraps of paper when no one watched. His words were shaky, his handwriting weak. Every man must choose what kind of human he wishes to be. Chose to listen to my heart. If this is my punishment, I accept it. He folded the paper and hid it under a loose brick in the wall. The guards were ruthless. Beatings, starvation, forced labor. Many prisoners collapsed in the snow, never to rise again. Wilhelm, older now, grew thinner by the day, but even then, he refused to give up his dignity. When a guard struck a younger prisoner, Wilhelm stepped forward. "Enough," he said. The guard sneered, raised his rifle, and struck Wilhelm across the face. Blood spilled. Wilhelm fell, but didn't break. That night, the young prisoner whispered to him through the bars, "Why did you do that?" Wilhelm replied, barely audible, "Because I couldn't stop them in Warsaw. But I can stop one here." Months passed. Winters froze the camp. Summers burned it. Rumors spread that Germany was rebuilding, that the war criminals were being freed. But not Wilhelm. His record still marked him as enemy officer. Number one cared that he'd saved a Jew. No one cared that he had disobeyed orders to spare lives. In the eyes of the victors, all Germans were the same. Meanwhile, in Poland, Władysław Szpilman had rebuilt his life. He returned to music, performing in front of thousands. Yet every applause reminded him of the man who had given him that chance. He tried to find him. He wrote to the authorities, pleaded with the Polish government. "Wilhelm Hosenfeld saved me. He was no criminal." But the letters vanished into bureaucracy. The Soviets never replied. The silence was their answer. Inside the camp, Wilhelm's health declined. His back ached. His vision blurred. He coughed blood each morning. Still, he spoke softly to those around him. "Don't hate," he told them. "Even here, we are free if we remember who we are." Some called him the preacher, others, the mad German. But every man in that cell block respected him. He had something the rest had lost: hope. One freezing night, a prisoner named Franz collapsed during roll call. The guards ignored him. Wilhelm dropped to his knees and covered the man with his own coat. The guard shouted, "Get up, you dog." Wilhelm didn't move. The rifle butt struck his back. He fell. Snow turned red beneath him. They dragged him inside. He lay in the corner, shivering, whispering words that no one understood. In his final diary note, written on the edge of a torn newspaper, he said, "If my life ends here, let them know I saw the truth too late, but I saw it. And I tried." A few weeks later, he was gone, buried in an unmarked grave outside the camp. No ceremony, no cross, just cold earth swallowing a warm heart. When the war trials ended, the world began to heal. Books were written. Heroes were celebrated, but no one spoke of Captain Hosenfeld until one day in 1950. A letter arrived at the Polish Cultural Office. It was from Szpilman. He wrote, "If not for this man, I would not be alive. He was German. Yes, but more importantly, he was human." The officials ignored it again. They saw no reason to help a German officer in a Soviet cell. Years later, Szpilman tried once more. He reached out to the Red Cross, to diplomats, to anyone who'd listen. By the time his plea reached the camp, Wilhelm was already dead. They sent back a single note, "Hosenfeld Wilhelm. Deceased 1952. That was it. Szpilman wept. For years, he kept that piece of paper folded inside his jacket pocket. Every time he performed, he imagined Wilhelm sitting in the front row. Silent, smiling, proud. He never forgot. Decades passed. Poland changed. Germany changed. The world changed. But the story of one German soldier who chose mercy over madness remained hidden in diaries, in whispers, in one pianist's memory. Until someone finally found Wilhelm's letters. They were discovered in an archive, pages filled with guilt, compassion, and faith. Letters to his wife, his children, his God. Words that revealed a man who fought not on battlefields, but within himself. "I am ashamed of what my nation has done." One letter read, "But I am proud that I did not remain silent." When these letters became public, historians were stunned. Here was a Nazi officer who secretly defied Hitler, who helped Jews, who risked everything to protect civilians. His family spoke out. His children told the world who their father really was. And slowly, Wilhelm's story began to shine through the fog of war. In 2007, the Yad Vashem Holocaust Memorial in Jerusalem honored Wilhelm Hosenfeld as righteous among the nations, an award for non-Jews who risked their lives to save Jews during the Holocaust. He joined names like Oskar Schindler, but unlike Schindler, he never lived to see the world remember him. His name, once buried under rubble and silence, was finally spoken with honor. Szpilman lived to see that day. He was old now, but when the ceremony was announced, he smiled faintly. "They remembered him," he whispered. "They finally remembered." He died a few years later, but his music lived on, each note a tribute to the man who gave him back his life. And so, history wrote them together. The pianist who survived, the soldier who saved, both men, symbols of what humanity can still be, even in the darkest of wars. But beneath all the honor and remembrance, one truth remained. Wilhelm never sought fame. He didn't save to be remembered. He saved because he couldn't do otherwise, because somewhere deep down, beneath the uniform, beneath the ideology, there was still a man who believed that mercy was stronger than hate. Wilhelm's early life had always hinted at the man he would become. Born in 1909, in a small town near Mulheim, he was the son of a schoolteacher and a local baker. Books lined the walls of his childhood home, and his father often read aloud from Goethe and Schiller. Wilhelm learned early that words could shape the soul, could inspire courage or guilt. As a boy, he would watch the trains pass through the station, imagining the soldiers they carried. He didn't dream of war then. He dreamed of music, literature, and quiet streets where people could live without fear. When the First World War ended, Germany was broken. His father's school was damaged. His mother worked long hours to feed the family. And the city's streets whispered stories of hunger and despair. The Treaty of Versailles left scars deeper than any bullet could. Wilhelm grew up, believing that duty to his country was sacred, that loyalty was measured by obedience. By the time the Nazis rose to power, he was a young man of 24. He joined the army, not out of blind patriotism, but out of a sense of order. He believed that discipline and structure could protect the weak from chaos. He did not yet know that those structures could be twisted into instruments of terror. The early years of the Wehrmacht were intoxicating. Wilhelm was promoted quickly, admired by his peers for clarity of thought and calm under pressure. He believed in rules, in honor, in the promise of a soldier's life. But the first time he witnessed a village burned because of suspicious activity, he felt something he had never felt before: shame. In 1940, as German troops occupied Poland, Wilhelm's moral conflict began. He was assigned to administrative duties in Warsaw. It was not a battlefield, just numbers, supply routes, and reports of partisans. But each report was a life. Each life was a story. He began keeping a diary. At first, it was mundane: supply shortages, troop movements, weather reports. But soon, guilt crept between the lines. I see people suffering. I obey orders. And yet each day, I feel myself slipping into something unrecognizable. When will I remember what it means to be human? By 1942, the Warsaw Ghetto had been sealed. Thousands were trapped behind barbed wire. Disease, hunger, and despair became their daily companions. Wilhelm began noticing small details: child hiding beneath a blanket, a mother sobbing silently. An elderly man trying to shield his grandchildren from the cold. He could not look away. One night, while inspecting the area for contraband, he saw a musician playing piano notes on the remains of a broken instrument. The music was haunting, fragile yet full of life. That man was Szpilman. Wilhelm didn't know it yet, but their lives would intertwine forever. Wilhelm approached cautiously, his uniform catching the dim light. Szpilman froze, expecting death, but Wilhelm only listened. The notes filled the ruined building, and for a moment, time itself seemed to stop. He whispered, "Play for as long as you can, survive." It was a command unlike any he had given in the army, one of protection, not destruction. And Szpilman obeyed, though fear never left his eyes. For months, Wilhelm became the invisible guardian. He smuggled food, medicine, and clothing into the ghetto. Each visit risked execution. Each act of mercy was a rebellion against the ideology he had once served. But he did not tell anyone, even his closest friend. Otto noticed the change but did not question it. Some truths were too dangerous to speak aloud. The winter of 1943 brought both devastation and opportunity. German forces were overstretched. The Soviet army was advancing. And the chaos allowed Wilhelm to act more boldly. He found hiding places for families, delivered food to those who had been abandoned, and guided children to safer shelters. Every day, the line between soldier and savior blurred, but the risk grew. Other officers grew suspicious. Whispers circulated. There was a man among them who defied orders. One evening, Wilhelm returned from a supply run to find a child trapped under rubble from a bombed building. He lifted the debris with his own hands, ignoring the danger of collapsing walls. The boy's face was pale, eyes wide with fear. Wilhelm carried him to safety. Wrapping him in his coat, he whispered, "Don't let the war break you. You must live." The child nodded, tears freezing on his cheeks. By 1944, The situation had worsened. Warsaw was under constant bombardment. Civilians were starving. Ghettos were being liquidated. Wilhelm's actions became more audacious. He falsified documents to save families, hid Jews in abandoned buildings, and bribed guards to look the other way. Each act was a gamble with death, yet he continued. I am a soldier of war. Yes, but I am also a man of conscience. If I fail to act, I am no better than the monsters I serve. The Soviets were closing in. The German army's grip weakened. Wilhelm realized that remaining in uniform was now more dangerous than the risk of helping civilians. He began preparing escape routes, safe houses, hidden passages, secret caches of food. He planned for a world where he might not survive, but he never hesitated. Even when he was discovered smuggling supplies, he faced his superiors with calm defiance. These are innocent people. I will not let them die. The punishment for such words was death, and yet he spoke them anyway. By the spring of 1945, the city was in ruins. The streets were filled with rubble, ash, and despair. Families huddled in basements, listening to distant artillery. And in one corner, Wilhelm found Szpilman again, thin, exhausted, but alive. He handed him a small bundle of bread and a coat. You must survive, Wilhelm said. Not for me, for the world. Szpilman nodded, the weight of gratitude pressing on his chest. Days later, Wilhelm was arrested by Soviet forces. They treated him as a typical German officer. No one knew of the lives he had saved. No one knew of the mercy he had shown. In prison, Wilhelm endured harsh labor, starvation, and cold. He was beaten, mocked, and left to die. But his conscience remained intact. He had acted rightly, even when the world turned against him. If I die here, it matters little. What matters is that I did not betray my own soul. Inside the camp, Wilhelm became a quiet hero. Other prisoners looked to him for guidance. His courage, even in small acts, sharing food, calming fear, comforting the sick, gave them hope. He never spoke of glory. He never asked for recognition. And yet, in every life he touched, his presence mattered. Szpilman survived the war and eventually told the world of the German soldier who had saved him. Wilhelm's actions were finally recognized, though posthumously. In 2007, Yad Vashem honored him as righteous among the nations. A German officer saved my life, Szpilman said. He did not seek fame. He only sought to do what was right. Wilhelm Hosenfeld had lived and died in obscurity. A man who chose humanity over obedience, mercy over ideology, and courage over fear. Even decades later, his story reminds us, in the darkest times, one person's conscience can shine brighter than any army. One life of courage can ripple across history, saving others, inspiring generations. Years in captivity passed slowly. Each day was measured by the cold, by hunger, by the sound of guards' boots echoing down concrete corridors. Wilhelm counted nothing except the lives he had tried to save. He thought often of the faces from Warsaw, the children, the families, the pianist. They were the reason he endured. Without them, he might have surrendered to despair, even in prison. His compassion did not falter. A fellow prisoner, delirious with fever, was abandoned by the guards. Wilhelm carried him to the water source, shared his meager portion of bread, and sat by his side through the night. Why help me? The man whispered. Shivering, Wilhelm's voice was calm, steady, unwavering. Wilhelm Hosenfeld was born into a world already scarred. 1909. Small town near Mulheim, a schoolteacher's son, a baker's child. Books lined the walls of his home. Goethe, Schiller, lessons of morality, stories of heroes, stories of shame. As a boy, he dreamed of quiet streets, not armies, not guns, not blood. He imagined life without fear. The world had other plans. The First World War ended in Defeat. Germany humiliated. His father's school damaged. Hunger everywhere. Childhood shadowed by loss. Young Wilhelm learned duty. Early, order mattered. Obedience mattered, but so did conscience. He learned to see both, the world's cruelty and the human capacity to resist it. By the time Hitler rose, Wilhelm was 24. The streets were filled with slogans. The rallies thundered with promises of greatness. He joined the army, not out of blind devotion, but out of belief that discipline could protect the weak. At first, the army seemed noble. He wore his uniform with pride. He kept his diary meticulously. He recorded movements, supply shortages, minor victories. He believed in honor. Then the war moved east. Poland, Warsaw, occupation. Wilhelm witnessed cruelty. First-hand. Villages burned. Families executed. Children left to starve. He saw the true face of the Reich. One night, he discovered a hidden family. Jewish. Mother, father, 2 children, huddled in a warehouse. Fear etched into every line of their faces. He raised his hand to his gun, then lowered it. He closed the door quietly behind him. No one must know. He scribbled in his diary, "I saw human beings where others see vermin." It was the moment he changed. Small acts of defiance began. Extra rations left behind warehouses, a loaf of bread, a jar of jam. Each small rebellion carried risk. Discovery meant execution, but he continued. The Warsaw ghetto was sealed. Hundreds of thousands trapped, starving, dying. Wilhelm walked the perimeter. He heard coughing, crying, whispers of hope. He slipped a bag of food through a broken wall. Bread, potatoes, a note. "Hold on. There are still good men among monsters." No signature, no recognition. Just survival. Ghetto uprising. German soldiers stormed the streets. Buildings burned. Smoke blackened the sky. Wilhelm watched, silent, helpless. He felt guilt gnaw at him like ice. "We are destroyers, not liberators," he wrote. "If this is glory, it is built on graves." One day, he found Szpilman, a pianist, thin, exhausted, starving, hiding in ruins. Wilhelm's orders would have been clear: capture, execution. But he did the impossible. He fed the man, protected him, guided him through rubble. "Play," he whispered, "play to survive." The music returned in a broken city, a fragile victory. Weeks became months. Wilhelm smuggled food, hid families, bribed guards. Each action of gambled. Every moment could be his last. Outside, the Reich crumbled. Hitler demanded total war. Executions for deserters. Chaos everywhere. Wilhelm's mission remained: keep Szpilman alive. Every day was a choice. Every decision a moral battlefield. "If I die knowing I acted rightly," he wrote. Winter 1945. Soviets advanced. German forces retreated. Wilhelm stayed. Too old to flee. Too committed to abandon Szpilman. Soviet soldiers entered the city. They arrested every German. Wilhelm did not resist. He left a note for Szpilman: "Do not forget me. Remember there was a German who wanted to help." Szpilman survived. He searched for Wilhelm. Soviets ignored him. Wilhelm remained a ghost. Inside prison, Wilhelm endured beatings, starvation, labor, but he never lost dignity. When a guard struck a fellow prisoner, Wilhelm intervened. He took the blow. "I could not stop them in Warsaw," he whispered, "but I can stop one here." Other prisoners called him the preacher, some the mad German. But all respected him. His diaries chronicled his moral struggle. Letters to his family. Confessions to God. "I obeyed orders, but my conscience resisted." Mercy is stronger than power. Humanity is stronger than fear. Weeks passed. Winters froze the camp. Summers burned it. Wilhelm grew weaker. He coughed blood, he shivered, but he comforted others, shared food, told stories of hope. A young boy collapsed one night. Wilhelm covered him with his coat. The guards shouted, "Rifle!" Butts struck his back. Blood spilled. Pain roared. He whispered through the cold, "Live, survive, remember." Letters survived. Hidden in walls. Other prisoners read them. In them, courage, mercy, defiance. They saw a man who risked everything to do right. "If I fail, I betray my soul," he wrote. Meanwhile, Szpilman rebuilt his life. Music returned. Concerts. Applause. He never forgot Wilhelm. He searched. Wrote letters. Pleaded for justice. But fate was cruel. Wilhelm was already forgotten. Prison took its toll. 1952. Wilhelm died quietly. No one knew. No one mourned. An unmarked grave. Silent. Cold. Yet his axe lived on. Lives saved. Families protected. Szpilman alive. Decades later. Letters surfaced. Diaries revealed the truth. Wilhelm had defied Hitler. He had saved Jews. He had risked death countless times. "I am ashamed of my nation's crimes, but I am proud I did not remain silent." Recognition finally came. Yad Vashem honored him as righteous among the nations. Szpilman, old and frail, attended. Tears in his eyes. He did not seek fame, he whispered. He only sought to do what was right. History remembered two men. The pianist who survived, the soldier who saved, German officer who defied Hitler, a man who chose humanity over ideology, even in silence. Wilhelm's legacy endured. Every life he touched whispered his story. Every act of courage survived the war. Even decades later, he walked among us. Invisible, uncelebrated, but never forgotten. Winter in Warsaw was merciless. Snow covered broken streets. Smoke rose from ruins. Hunger clawed at every stomach. Death lingered in every shadow. Wilhelm Hosenfeld walked silently. His boots crunched over ice and rubble. Each step a reminder of what had been lost. Each step a choice, obedience or conscience. He remembered the first time he saw the pianist. Man playing on broken keys, notes floating through the smoke. Wilhelm had stepped inside quietly and left food. "Play, survive," he whispered. That moment haunted him. The world demanded cruelty. He chose mercy. By 1943, his small axe had become bolder. Families hidden, children fed, guards bribed, documents falsified. Every day a risk of death. He kept a diary, short lines, simple words. "I am a soldier, I obey orders, yet I will not obey cruelty. Mercy is my duty." He did not speak to others of his deeds. Some noticed his quiet defiance. Some warned him, but he continued. Winter passed. Spring brought chaos. The Soviets advanced. The German forces crumbled. Orders became meaningless. Wilhelm moved through the ruins. Every corner, every alley, every basement held someone in need. He guided them, fed them, protected them. One small act at a time, he preserved life in a city of death. One evening, he found a child trapped under rubble. Small hands, trembling. Eyes wide with fear. Wilhelm lifted the debris with his own hands, wrapped the boy in his coat. "You must survive," he said, "for life, for hope, for tomorrow." The boy nodded. He survived. Szpilman survived too. Wilhelm provided food, shelter, guidance. Every day a chance for life. The pianist's music returned. Soft but defiant, in the ruins. Play to survive. Wilhelm had said. Music became a lifeline. By 1944, the Nazis demanded obedience. Orders to destroy, to execute, to terrorize. Wilhelm refused. Every refusal carried risk. Discovery meant certain death. But he persisted. "If I obey this cruelty," He wrote, "I betray my soul. I choose humanity over ideology." The Soviets entered the city in 1945. Chaos consumed the streets. Wilhelm was arrested. He did not resist. No words. No defiance. Only a quiet acceptance. Inside prison, he endured the cold, hunger, and beatings. Other prisoners watched him. They called him the preacher. He comforted the sick, shared rations, whispered hope. Every day he lived. He chose humanity again. A fellow prisoner collapsed one night. Wilhelm covered him with his coat. The guards shouted, struck him, laughed. Pain pierced his back. Blood stained the snow. Wilhelm whispered, "Live, survive, remember." The man survived. Wilhelm had saved another life. His diaries were discovered later by other prisoners. Pages filled with confessions, fears, hopes. "I obeyed orders," he wrote, "but I did not obey cruelty. Mercy is my act of resistance. Humanity will endure." Outside, the world rebuilt. Warsaw rose from rubble. Germany recovered. But Wilhelm remained forgotten. Szpilman survived. He returned to music, concert halls, applause, life. Yet he never forgot Wilhelm. He searched. At first, the army seemed noble. He wore his uniform with pride. He kept his diary meticulously. He recorded movements, supply shortages, minor victories. He believed in honor. Then the war moved east. Poland, Warsaw, occupation. Wilhelm witnessed cruelty. First-hand. Villages burned. Families executed. Children left to starve. He saw the true face of the Reich. One night, he discovered a hidden family. Jewish, mother, father, 2 children, huddled in a warehouse. Fear etched into every line of their faces. He raised his hand to his gun, then lowered it. He closed the door quietly behind him. No one must know. He scribbled in his diary, "I saw human beings where others see vermin." It was the moment he changed. Small acts of defiance began. Extra rations left behind warehouses, a loaf of bread, a jar of jam. Each small rebellion carried risk. Discovery meant execution, but he continued. The Warsaw Ghetto was sealed. Hundreds of thousands trapped, starving, dying. Wilhelm walked the perimeter. He heard coughing, crying, whispers of hope. He slipped a bag of food through a broken wall. Bread, potatoes, a note. "Hold on. There are still good men among monsters." No signature, no recognition. Just survival. Ghetto uprising. German soldiers stormed the streets. Buildings burned. Smoke blackened the sky. Wilhelm watched, silent, helpless. He felt guilt gnaw at him like ice. "We are destroyers, not liberators," he wrote. "If this is glory, it is built on graves." One day, he found Szpilman, a pianist, thin, exhausted, starving, hiding in ruins. Wilhelm's orders would have been clear: capture, execution. But he did the impossible. He fed the man, protected him, guided him through rubble. "Play," he whispered, "play to survive." The music returned in a broken city. A fragile victory. Weeks became months. Wilhelm smuggled food, hid families, bribed guards. Each action of gambled. Every moment could be his last. Outside, the Reich crumbled. Hitler demanded total war. Executions for deserters. Chaos everywhere. Wilhelm's mission remained: keep Szpilman alive. Every day was a choice. Every decision a moral battlefield. "If I die knowing I acted rightly," he wrote. Winter 1945. Soviets advanced. German forces retreated. He searched, wrote letters, pleaded with authorities, but Wilhelm remained a ghost. Prison weakened him. Years passed. 1952. Wilhelm died quietly. Alone. Cold earth swallowed him. No ceremony, no grave. Yet his acts of courage lived. Lives saved. Families protected. Szpilman alive. Decades later, Letters and diaries surfaced. Historians read them in shock. A German officer who defied Hitler, who saved Jews, who risked death for humanity. I obeyed orders, he wrote. But I could not obey cruelty. Mercy is stronger than power. Humanity is stronger than fear. Recognition finally came. Yad Vashem. 2007. Righteous among the nations. A German officer honored for saving lives. Szpilman. Frail and old, attended. Tears filled his eyes. He never sought fame, he whispered. He only sought to do what was right. History remembered two men. The pianist who survived. The soldier who saved. Wilhelm Hosenfeld. Invisible. Uncelebrated, yet eternal. A man who chose humanity over ideology. Courage over fear. Mercy over hatred. Warsaw still bore scars. The streets rebuilt. Shadows of history lingered. Wilhelm's spirit lived in the lives he touched, even in the darkest times. One person can choose humanity, he wrote. One man chose life. One man defied Hitler. One man changed history. Snow still fell on Warsaw, and in the hearts of those who hear this story, a quiet hero walked among them. Unseen. UNCELEBRAT, but never forgotten. Because someone must. Even if the world forgets us, we cannot forget each other. The prisoner survived. Wilhelm watched him leave the camp weeks later, disappearing into the snow, and felt a small, silent victory. Letters he had hidden from his diaries were eventually found by other inmates. They read his thoughts, his fears, his confessions of guilt and hope. Some wept, some laughed, incredulous that a German officer could show such mercy in a world consumed by hatred. I am a soldier, Wilhelm wrote, but I am still a man. And if I must die, I will die knowing I chose to save rather than destroy. Outside the prison walls, the world moved on. Warsaw slowly rebuilt. Though scars of war ran deep, Szpilman returned to music, performing in concert halls, telling audiences of the horrors he survived. He never forgot Wilhelm. He searched for him, writing letters, contacting authorities, trying to locate the man who had given him life twice, once through mercy, once through survival. But fate was cruel. The Soviets held Wilhelm without record. And when Szpilman's letters finally arrived, it was too late. Wilhelm died in 1952, quietly, alone, in a Soviet prison camp. His death went unrecorded in the history books. No monuments marked his grave. No headlines celebrated his courage, yet his legacy endured silent, powerful, human. It was decades later, when historians uncovered his letters and diaries, that the world learned of his story. Pages filled with small acts of courage, smuggling food into ghettos, hiding families from execution squads, bribing guards to look away, or risking his own life to protect a pianist. All of it carefully recorded in handwriting that trembled with fear and hope. I am ashamed of my nation's crimes, Wilhelm wrote, but I am proud that I did not remain silent. In 2007, the recognition finally came. Yad Vashem, the Holocaust Memorial in Jerusalem, declared him righteous among the nations. A German officer who defied Hitler, who saved Jews at the cost of his own life, who lived and died unknown. Szpilman, now an old man, attended the ceremony, his eyes filled with tears. He remembered the music, the fear, the kindness that had kept him alive. He did not ask to be remembered, Szpilman whispered, but the world owes him its gratitude. History is full of names we never hear, heroes who died in silence, who defied cruelty without expecting fame. Wilhelm Hosenfeld was one of them. And yet, his story reminds us all, even in the darkest of times, one person can choose humanity. One act of courage can ripple through history. One man can save lives and inspire generations. Even if no one sees him. The war left countless scars, Buildings crumbled. Families were lost. Nations rebuilt, but in the midst of death, destruction, and despair, a single German officer's moral choice stands as a beacon. Wilhelm Hosenfeld did not wield power with cruelty. He did not obey orders blindly. He acted on conscience. And in doing so, he restored a fragment of what humanity had almost lost. Even today, in the archives of history, his letters, his diaries, and the stories of those he saved tell a single, undeniable truth. Courage is not always loud. Heroism is not always recognized. And humanity can survive even in the hearts of those wearing the uniform of monsters. Wilhelm Hosenfeld, the soldier who defied Hitler to save civilians, remains an enduring testament to what it means to be human. A man who chose mercy over ideology. Compassion over fear, life over death. And so, the snow still falls over Warsaw in memory and in the hearts of those who hear his story. A quiet hero walks among them, unseen, uncelebrated, but never forgotten.